Hi everybody, it's Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and today's block is called Wedding Bouquet. And this is made with flying geese units and a square unit and half square triangles. So I think this is an interesting block. Now this sample I made out of some Lori Holt fabric, and a lot of my samples, that's what they're made out of. So you'll see that quite a bit this year. This is a 12-inch block, and got lots of points to match, but the piecing is not difficult, so I hope you'll give it a try. Here are the fabrics you're going to need to make the Wedding Bouquet block. For A, you're going to need one 4.5 inch square. For B, you'll need four 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles. C is 8 2.5 inch squares. D is four 3-inch squares. E is four 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles. F is four 3-inch squares, and G is 20 2.5 inch squares. Now you can draw diagonals on the wrong sides of the G squares, the F squares, and on 12 of the G squares. So I'm going to adjust the camera and we're going to get started making the block. Okay, I'm going to start with making half square triangles with the D and the F squares. And I'm just going to put them right sides together and draw a quarter or sew a 1/4 inch away from the drawn line on the back of the F square. And I'll do that on both sides of that line. And I'm just going to chain piece all of these together. Okay, and I'm going to cut this right down that drawn line. Okay, and then I'm going to press. Okay, here are the half square triangles. I trimmed these down to 2.5 inches square because they were closer to 2 3/8. So when you do this method following the directions in this pattern, you will need to trim these down, and that is in the written instructions. Now, the next thing I need to do is to make flying geese units, and I'm going to do that with the B and the G squares and the E and the C square. So be making 4 flying geese units with each of these. So I'm going to start with the C and the E's. And I'm going to sew a C square onto each side of this. I'm going to start on the right side. And I'm going to sew from the top center to the bottom right hand corner. And that's where your drawn line will help here. You want to sew right on that drawn line. And I'm going to just chain piece all of these together. Okay, I'm going to clip these apart, and then I'm going to trim the outer corner, leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance right here. So like that. And I'm going to press this back, and then I'm going to sew the squares to the opposite side. And for this side, I'm going to sew from the center top to the bottom left-hand corner. Okay, so there are the flying geese units. Now I need to do the same steps with the B rectangles and the G squares. Okay, so there are the other set of flying geese units. Okay, so what I need to sew these together, and what I'm going to do is to sew them with the blueprints together, so they'll look like this. So here's what this looks like, and I'm going to press, and we'll move on to the corner units. Okay, now we have all of these half square triangles we made earlier, and I need to make them into 4 patches using the rest of the G squares. So the half square triangles are going to face each other. They're going to be opposite, and then the corners are going to be filled in with the G squares. So let me adjust the camera and show you what I'm doing there. Okay, so these need to face each other like this, and then I fill in these corners with the G squares. So they're going to go like that. So I need to make 4 of these units. Okay, so I'm going to sew these together in rows, and then I'll sew the rows together. So we'll do a half square triangle to a square. And clip them apart, and I'm going to press towards the G square. This is what we'll have. Okay, so now I'm going to sew them together like this. And I'm going to go ahead and pin where those seams meet. Just nest those seams together. So here's the 4 patch. This is what we have, so I'm going to press that. We need to make 4 of these. Okay, now we need to make a square and a square unit. We're going to use the A square, and for the G squares that have a line drawn on the wrong side, and that drawn line, I'm going to put this in a corner, and that drawn line is going to go from side to side. And I'm going to stitch right on that line. I'm going to flip this around and go ahead and cut off the threads here. I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to put one on the opposite corner. Same thing with the drawn line. It's going to go from edge to edge here, so middle to middle, side to side. Okay, now I'm going to trim these corners off, leaving a leaving a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, and that will give me this. Okay, I'm going to press those back and then do the same thing to the other 2 corners. Okay, so here it is all pressed, and now we're going to do the opposite corners. Do the same thing with the drawn line. It needs to go from side to side. And let's turn to this one. Okay, I'm going to trim those corners off. And press those back. Okay, so here we go. So there is the square and a square unit. So now we're ready to put the block together. Okay, here I have all the pieces laid out to sew the block together. So the half square triangle units are going in the corner, flying geese units are in the center of each row, and then the square and a square unit is the very middle block. So I'm going to sew everything together into rows, and then I'll sew the rows together. So I'm sewing the first 2 pieces of each row together. I've already done the first row, and I do have points to match in places, so wherever I do, I'm going to do my pin method and just put the pin through each point and then line it up and then pin it in place, and then we'll sew. Okay, here is the finished block. I think it turned out pretty well. This is called the Wedding Bouquet. I used square and a square unit, 2 different flying geese units, half square triangles made into 4-patch units. So used 2 different colors, well, a darker blue, a light blue, and a light yellow. So you can use any mix of colors you want. And here is my sample block. I used greens and a kind of a tealy green and a darker yellow in that one. So it's a different fabric line. This is a couple of lines of Lori Holt fabric. This is the nutmeg fabric. So they look pretty similar, except that these flying geese, or these half square triangles here, are a little bit darker than here. These are pale, these are kind of dark comparatively. So that is it for the Wedding Bouquet block. Okay, that is it for the Wedding Bouquet block, and here's the one we just did. I made this in nutmeg fabric from Buy Basic Gray for Moda. So I like this. I really like this fabric line, and I'm running out of it, so you'll see a couple more blocks made with this yet. So here's, let me show you again. This is the nutmeg, and these are Lori Holt fabrics. There are various different lines of hers. There's scraps that I have in my stash. So 2 different colorways. The blocks are pretty either way. So I hope you'll give this block a try. Now, if you like this video, please click that like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and click that notification bell so you'll be notified when the next video comes up. And in the meantime, I hope you're all staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links. And to keep up with my latest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.